He is an inspiration and motivation for all of us. वो सिर्फ अपनी जिंदगी के हीरो नहीं है, बल्कि हम सभी के जिंदगी के हीरो हैं। फर्ज से लेकर आज तक उनकी जिंदगी की कहानी हमारे लिए प्रेरणा स्रोत है।
और आज हम सब खुशनसीब हैं कि हम सब के बीच में आ रहे हैं the one and only magnetic demeanor Dr. Arabinda Brahma, a renowned psychiatrist from Kolkata, who is also an honorary lecturer of Psychological Counseling course of Indian Psychological Analytical Society, Kolkata, to enlighten us about Dr. Sujithar Shah Astiv for medical students. He is a torch bearer and a constant source of motivation for all of us. Please have a huge round of applause. डॉक्टर जगदीश गोयल सर से इस अरविंद ब्रह्मा सर का मोमेंटो देकर फेलिसिटेट करें सर प्लीज।
Good morning. It's always a nice pleasure to be invited and to deliver a talk in NMOCON. And this time it is going to happen in my own state in West Bengal. And AIIMS Kalyani is one of the most important health destination for our state, so it's always a great importance to us for any medical students or medical doctor to be delivered his lecture in AIIMS. So, respected chairpersons, and today I can see Professor Dr. Gangadhar sir is here, my mentor in Indian Psychiatric Society. Now, today I am really proud that NMO has selected me for this prestigious Dr. Sujithar oration. It's a really proud moment for me. At present, I'm the National General Secretary of Indian Psychiatric Society, but at the same time, I'm the Vice President of Shaksham Dakshin Banga and also Vice President of NMO Bengal. So, today, the topic I have chosen, that is on the stress, the anxiety, burnout, what we see in medical students and in the medical fraternity on the whole. So journey of doctors, their stress and their well-being. So we know that the medical students, the burnout is the triad of exhaustion, cynicism and feeling of inefficacy. So exhaustion refers, what is exhaustion? It refers to the feeling of exceeding emotional resource requirement of the study. Cynicism, it is the negative, insensibly detached response to the study, colleagues, teachers and for patients. And what is feeling of inefficacy? That means the reduced academic achievement as a decline in feeling of competency and achievement as a student. Those, I think many medical students are here, so all of you are facing these things. Now, a systemic review in 2021 that shows the prevalence of burnt out syndrome in university students showed estimates of 55% for emotional exhaustion, more than 31% for cynicism, and more than 30% for academic efficacy. Only problem is these data are all Western data. This is an American study. Unfortunately, in our country, we have very little study on these medical students or medical doctors burnout. So burnout is associated with general distress, poor educational performance, college dropout, suicidal ideation and substance use, mainly during the medical school. And occupational stress and anxiety symptoms can be directly related to burnout, which means the higher the stress and anxiety, higher the burnout level. This is very important because nowadays in our clinic, many medical students, first year, second year, third year, even final year, they are coming with different substance abuse problems, and especially it has gone high after the COVID pandemic has started, and suicide. During my post-graduation days, my studies on, my thesis is on suicidal behavior in Sundarban region, and there I did an extensive study for 7 years. That was a World Bank funded project. So suicidal behavior, it is such a complex human behavior. Basically what happens in our mind, two things are working together. One is the eros, that is the life energy, and another one is the thanatos, the death energy. So both the life energy and death energy are working together in our everyday life, in our mind. And in most situations, the eros takes the upper hand. That's why we are working, we are planning something, we are executing our duties. But sometimes this thanatos, that is the death instinct, that goes high. And that is mainly because of this anxiety, severe stress, or because of the burnt out that the medical students often face. So the suicidal rate is quite high in the medical students and also in the doctors' fraternity. And from the clinical point of view, I think this is most important, where we should focus more, because in every 4 seconds in any part of the world, one person is attempting suicide. And in every 40 seconds, one person is committing suicide. And I believe if we consider suicide as a disease, then that is the only disease which is 100% preventable. So as a doctor, it is our duty to save a person's life, because it will not take much time, it will not take much effort. You have to talk to the person who is in distress, maybe your friend, maybe your MBBS colleague who is in distress, just talk to him. Or a doctor, your colleague, just talk to him. This catharsis is very important, and if he or she can ventilate out his distress, then the chance of suicide will be much less. Now, college dropout intention has a wide range of negative consequences on the individual, family, faculty, and community. For instance, dropout intention is related to an individual's expectation not being met, symptoms of loss and frustration, and financial cost. That is also important. In the USA, resident trainees' second leading cause of death is suicide. About 4.1 per each 1 lakh population, and approximately 10 out of 100 medical students report suicidal ideation. Same thing in our country also. We have very few studies on suicidal ideations in medical students in our country, and there also we found that many medical students have strong suicidal ideations. So that should be taken care of. So what are the common causes of burnt out? High academic requirement. When you are entering in your MBBS studies, the academic requirement is quite high if you compare with the other professional courses. Demanding nature of the content, heavy workload, and stress of the exams. We have gone through those days, the first prof MBBS, second prof, third prof, and then the PG entrance, and then the final exam of PG. So we know what is the stress of exam. Just imagine the night before the Viva exam, or night before any subject like medicine or surgery, like things. But you have to cope up with the examination stress, because you are going to be a doctor. You are serving the community, so you should handle your own stress, and you should know how to cope up with the stressful situations. Now, coping. So this is another variable of interest about burnt out. There are two types of coping. One is adaptive coping strategies, are seeking help, information, social support, accepting, planning, and reframing problems with faith or with humor. This is very important. So these are all adaptive coping strategy. And adaptive coping is associated with academic engagement. You will perform better in your academic studies. Now, on the other hand, there is non-adaptive coping strategies that encompasses self-distraction, disengagement, self-blame, denial, and substance use. That is what I told, that many medical students are coming to our clinic with history of substance abuse, and then they are showing having clinical depression, anxiety, or these suicidal ideas, all these things. Now, this non-adaptive coping is associated with burnt out. So, student burnt out and general distress like anxiety, depression, and stress are negatively associated with adaptive coping strategy. So we will always try to adapt, we will try to cope up in a positive way. That should be the message. Social support is very important from psychological point of view. Social support satisfaction is the set of information that one experiences that make him or her believe that he or she is supported, loved, and valued in a communication network and mutual obligations. Social support is expected to be negatively related to burnt out. Social support should to be central to student engagement in academic activities, being expected to be positively related to the satisfaction with social support. That I am talking about this high suicidal rate worldwide and also in our country. But if a person is having a good social support system, the chance of suicidal ideations are very minimal in that particular individual. So why there is so much stress among medical graduates? Understanding the stress medical students and doctors they face and how it affects them can help us to understand behind the scene factors that they deal with and raise awareness of their heavy level of stress. Doctors have medical training, so they understand the cause and effect of stress and can point us to health resource and plan to manage stress. They may also be quite adept at handling stress, but this is not always the case. And the stress that many doctors face is far beyond basic run-of-the-mill stress. That is the thing, that during our MBBS studies or during our PG days, we learn how to cope up with the stressful situation. But sometimes when the stress level is going so much high that it becomes very difficult for an individual, for a medical student or for a medical doctor, that he cannot cope up properly with that adaptive coping strategy. So that is important, that medical students and medical doctors should be trained in a way that they can handle their stresses in a positive way. One study found that proportion of doctors experiencing above threshold level of stress is 28% compared to general population, 18% of whom experience this level of stress on the job. So this stress is mainly the occupational stress. Another study by American Medical Association and the Mayo Clinic found that doctors work on an average of 10 hours more per week than average population. They experience emotional exhaustion at higher rate and experience burnt out at significantly higher burnt out rates and lower life satisfaction rate as well. 36% of physicians reported being satisfied with their work-life balance compared to 61% of general US working population. So this is another very known story to us for any medical students or for any medical doctors. The family life, social life, family, friends, we don't get time. Always we are busy either with our study or we are with our patients. So we always feel that our stress level is always high in comparison to the general population or in comparison to the other professionals. So what are the sources of stress, anxiety and burnt out in medical students and doctors? One is long hours of duty. Medical students and doctors, either they study or they work for many hours, and these tend to be stressful hours. Their shifts are long and filled with strenuous activities. They are often on call even when not on duty, so they may live with the feeling of always being on duty. Those who are intern, house staff or PGs, you know that almost always you are on duty, on call. This can make leisure time feel less relaxing and contribute to an experience of chronic stress. This also means that weekend may feel less restorative. These are some of the prime risk factors for job burnout, which explains why so many medical students or doctors experience it. Now, this is very important, the professional mistakes. This is another important risk factor, is the feeling that mistakes are risky. That real and lasting damage can come from a small mistake at work for the doctors. We know that most job contains a degree of this. It's never a great idea to make a mistake at work. But in many jobs, it's okay to make someone mistakes and rare to do everything perfectly. We are not perfect. No one is perfect in this world. So in every profession, we are doing some mistakes. But in our profession, there is no mercy almost. So in the life of a doctor, any mistake could be a mistake that is remembered for years, a mistake that may ruin the life of the doctor. The small margin of error and high level of consequences for imperfection can lead to heightened stress and anxiety in the medical students or in doctors. So, if they make a mistake and consequences are heavy, this mistake can be haunting. Fear of making a mistake can lead to a heightened sense of anxiety. So, in either way, the toll is heavy and the push to be a perfectionist is strong. So almost in every week you will find in any part of the country, doctors are beaten, even the interns, house staffs, they are beaten, or the doctors' chambers, the hooligans are coming and they are destroying. Even they are killing doctors. And that is not in our country. Across the globe the same problem is there. That's why we are always in a strenuous situation that if I do some mistake, maybe a small mistake, but that may cause death of a person, and what will be the consequences. So whenever we are treating a patient, nowadays especially, that thing always haunting in our mind, in our back of the mind, that if something happens to my patient, then what will be the consequences. So that gives an additional stress to every doctor. Now, perfectionism. Medical students or doctors can face a risk of maintaining a perfectionist attitude in their lives. Most of them, not all, most of them. So over time, perfectionists tend to be far more stressed and even perform more poorly because of this stress. The stress of never quite being enough. And they may also succumb to procrastination and burn out more easily as well. So please remember, I'm requesting the medical students who are going to be doctor, or those who are doing your PG courses now, don't try to be a perfectionist. No one is perfect here in this world. So you may cause some errors. It is also professional errors, but always try to avoid it, definitely, for the patient's sake and for your sake also. But don't try to be a perfectionist. Now this is important, this is unfortunate also, lack of professional support. First, I talked about the social support, support from the family, support from the friends. Now, I am talking about the professional support, support from our own professional colleagues. So, there is another layer of difficulty that doctors face is if they talk to their colleagues about the stress they face or feeling of burnt out. This shows a perceived weakness that many doctors don't want to show. Out of fear of professional or personal ramifications, many doctors don't discuss the challenges they face or seek help themselves when they may need support with managing stress. First of all, we are ashamed to disclose that I am stressed, I am anxious, I am depressed, I am feeling low, I am feeling down, even to our professional colleagues, because that will show our weakness. But that is wrong. Your professional colleagues are there to help you. So it is always wise to discuss the problems with your professional colleagues, discuss with them, the solution may come out from that. And if you discuss with your colleagues, that doesn't mean that you are weak. You, as a professional, you can always chat with your professional colleagues in a professional way. That is very important. You know, when I was doing a research on domestic violence on women in Sundarban area, so during interview session, I found many male members are telling me that, Doctor, I am also a victim of domestic abuse, but you are always asking the women in the house whether they are the victim of domestic abuse or not. And then I gone through many papers, many research papers, and I found that domestic violence on men is also important. The number is quite high. But what happens? Men, because of the male ego, or you can say that it's a patriarchal society, we don't want to express that. So there is a general consensus that the common victim of domestic violence is the women. But males are also victims, but they don't express. The same thing happens with doctors also. They don't want to show their weakness, they don't want to discuss their problems with their colleagues. They don't get the professional support from their colleagues in many occasions. So sometimes some emotionally draining situation comes to the life of a medical student or life of a doctor. The need to face emotionally loaded or draining situations on a regular basis is something that doctors face constantly, and another job factor that puts people at an increased risk for burnout. So they need to deal with patients who may be upset or scared, patients who are angry, and they must break the bad news to patient and their family members can be particularly taxing for compassionate doctors. And this constant part of the job can take a heavy toll. Sometimes our own professional colleagues from medicine, surgery, gynae, orthopedic, they are coming to us. They are telling that I'm heavily stressed. And these are the factors. These are the common factors why they become so much stressed, why they become so much anxious. Dealing with the patient, dealing with the family member of the patients, or sometimes how to say how to break a bad news to the family member. I think these are all skills that usually we learn during our training days, like during our house job or during our PG days. But we should give more importance on that. Then medical students or doctors can handle the general stress that we face in our day-to-day clinical practice that can be solved. Unfortunately, doctors are expected to deal with these emotionally heavy situations with grace and compassionate support, and then go directly to the next patient without showing their stride. You all know that this is a common, almost daily routine for most of the clinical practitioners. And this requires a strong level of self-compassion and a supportive network for doctors themselves. But even with those factors in place, the emotional toll being a doctor can be a big one. Now, lack of choice as a professional. Doctors cannot usually take a day off if they feel that they are approaching a state of burnt out, even though they cannot take a leave. Most of the doctors, they cannot go on vacation and leave their phones off most of the time. And you know nowadays with these mobile phones, if you are going for a vacation with your family, but your mobile, you have to switch on your mobile, and constantly your patients will call you and you have to communicate with your patients. So vacation, while you are on vacation, the chance of relaxation is not that much. They don't always have a high level of choice in their day-to-day lives, and this can be stressful as well. One study found that nearly half of doctors would quite big doctors if they felt it was a viable option for them. This lack of choice can feel particularly stressful. And believe me, many of my friends or my colleagues of other discipline of medicine, nowadays they are coming to me and they are telling me if I can go into a different profession. I am not enjoying my profession. It is so much stressful. But unfortunately, being a doctor, I cannot go to any other profession. But it has started because very recently I found a place called Noihati, not far from this place, maybe a 20 minutes drive from here. An orthopedician has now stopped his practice and started that beauty salon, something like that. Nowadays, you know, there is that unisex salon type things. So he has started this. But then this is an exception. But many doctors, many of my friends or colleagues, they are telling me nowadays that we are not enjoying. It is so much stressful for us. But we don't have any choice. No, little social support. Doctors face a kind of stress as they maintain a promise of confidentiality with their patients. So it may be more difficult to talk about the challenges of their job and their day. This confidentiality is a big issue for us, for the doctors. For one thing, they are not able to share everything. But another factor is that their loved ones cannot always relate these things. And this can make it difficult to find social support in the same way that many people find it. Because you know that many times we cannot discuss why I am stressed, why I am anxious with my family members. Because it's a matter of confidentiality. So it's difficult for them to judge us why this person is so much stressed. And that is the reason why there is very little social support for the doctors. Now, please try to minimize stressors where one can. While not all type of stress are harmful, too much stress overall can take a toll and lead to chronic stress. And this chronic stress is dangerous. We should avoid this. This also means that stress of little thing in life, like losing your car keys, dealing with a messy home, enduring a draining friend, can also add to the overall stress in your life. Getting rid of them wherever one can live, one with more time and energy to devote to things he enjoys and can leave him with more energy to handle the stress he faces at work. And try to find out a supportive network. Social support really helps with stress, especially the right kind of social support. If one feels that his life doesn't contain enough of this, it is important to make a change. He can find more people to create strong relationship with. Basically, there are many, our family members, friends, colleagues, they are ready to help us, but we don't approach them. That is our fault. He can work on strengthening the relationship he already has. If one finds himself uncomfortable talking about the stress he feels because he is afraid of showing weakness, this is all the more reasons to explore and alter those feelings so he is able to receive support rather than just giving it. Now, nowadays any lecture we cannot complete without saying few words about COVID pandemic. And we know during this COVID pandemic or after the COVID pandemic, from mental health point of view, I can tell you this anxiety, depression, stress, all has risen to a great extent. Substance abuse, suicide, across the country, across the globe. So what we saw during COVID pandemic, medicine is at a crisis point when the pandemic has started. Healthcare professionals are responding with an astounding display of selflessness, caring for patients despite the risk of profound professional harm, personal harm. We lost many of our professional colleagues in this battle. Our efforts are recognized and applauded. During this interlude filled with uncertainty, there has been a sense of altruism and urgency that has unexpectedly catalyzed the restoration of some elements of autonomy, competency, and relatedness. So as the current crisis ultimately abates, we need to remember the lesson that the system can be reset. The system can be reset. You know, actually this COVID-19 pandemic is almost gone now. It will go. But what happens every time after a pandemic, there will be a mental health pandemic or mental health epidemic for coming 10 years or 15 years. And already we are seeing this. As a mental health professional, we are seeing this. So every doctor or every medical student who are going to be a doctor, be careful of that while dealing with your patients. Maybe they are having anxiety, maybe they are having depression. On the other hand, try to cope up properly in an adaptive way with your own anxiety, with your own depression or stress. And for that, we have many Indianized things like yoga, meditation, and give some personal time for you. You are the most important person in your life. So every day give some time for you only. And try to be involved in some creative work. Have fun with your family members, friends. Should have some relaxation in your everyday busy life. So thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. This is absolutely commendable how you describe each and every pointer with such a great scientific and statistical approach. Thank you, sir.